This is another one of those stories that hits close to home for me, and it's crazy because even though it does hit close to home for me, I wouldn't have known about it unless somebody had tagged me in the story, because it's not something that would have came up on my radar. And when you hear the details, you'll understand why. So the person in this picture's name is David Michael Crawford, and he was a former Maryland police chief, and he just recently got 8 life sentences for setting up what they call revenge fires. Now, I pretty much have an idea of what that is, but the fact that the part that got me was the fact that they actually got the sentencing right. They said he got 8 life sentences, and by the way, this guy, I believe, is in his 70s, so there's no chance for him, especially with them 8 life sentences. They making sure that this dude never gets out of jail. The former Laurel police chief, accused in a string of arsons around Maryland, has been sentenced Tuesday to life in prison for the fires he set in Howard County. Howard Circuit Judge Richard S. Bernhardt gave David Michael Crawford, age 71, consecutive life sentences plus 75 years in prison, imposing a total of 8 life sentences. Bernhardt ruled that Crawford could serve 6 of them at the same time. As if that would do anything for him. I mean, he's got life regardless. Arsons destroy persons, Bernhardt said. In March, a jury found Crawford guilty of 8 counts of attempted first-degree murder, 1 charge for each of the people's homes during fires he set to houses in Elkridge and Ellicott City, and 3 counts of first-degree arson and 1 count of malicious burning. And some authorities say Crawford is responsible for setting 12 fires in 6 counties from 2011 to 2020. So this guy was doing this for damn near 10 years. He's just a regular little fire starter. Now keep in mind, he's the former chief. He's a former police chief, which means he has some level of authority. It makes me wonder what his record was like when he was the police chief. At trial in March, prosecutors presented evidence from all 12 fires to show his pattern. Crawford kept on his computer a coded list of people he felt had slighted him in matters personal or professional, researched their properties, and put flame to them under the cover of darkness, sometimes more than once. Now we're getting a little bit more deeper into the story. They said that it felt personal. Well, they call it revenge fire, so it had to be personal. But they said personal or professional. So these are people that he was going after for stuff that he felt like he was dealing with personally outside of the job. And when it came professionally, those are people he was dealing with inside the job. So it makes me wonder, did any of those homes he set fires to were the people he worked with in the department? In Howard County, Crawford set his chiropractor's house ablaze while the doctors, their children, and a relative were home. He also twice ignited the home of a woman whom he worked with on a school redistricting initiative, with one of the fires taking place when she, her husband, and daughter were home. He also scorched a car outside of the house of a nonprofit director Crawford's wife butted heads with. Crawford is someone who lacks basic humanity, Howard County State's Attorney Rich Gibson told reporters after Tuesday's hearing, calling the sentence appropriate. Despite the jury's verdict, Crawford's attorney Robert Bonsib said Tuesday that his client maintains his innocence and plans to appeal. How do you maintain your innocence when they have all this mountain of evidence that your client is the one who did it? I understand that, you're a lawyer and you have to do whatever you feel that you can do to prove your client's innocence, but there's some cases where you have to just look at it and say, you know what? I'm going to have to bite the bullet on this one. There's no way that my client is innocent. And we know why they do this, because they have to, it looks good if they can try to, get their client off. And of course, the money is always great too. Because at the end of the day, they're going to still get paid in attorney fees regardless, win or lose. But let's face the facts and deal with reality. Your client has a serious problem with not only dealing with fire, as it appears that he loves it, but he just has a lot of issues dealing with people. This is why he got all these life sentences. Luckily, nobody died from what he did, because they said these people were home when he did what he did. It's not like he was setting fire to empty homes. He was setting fire while people were there. So luckily no one was a casualty of this, and the only casualty was their home. And of course the insurance is going to pay for it, but still, that's a lot of damage. and that sets them back a lot. And that's a lot of rebuilding they will have to do, especially on the financial side. And this guy just didn't care. And when you look at it, he was doing this for the most minute things. Just because his wife butted heads with someone else, you decide to go set their home on fire? Let's continue. It's a sad ending for Mr. Crawford, Bonsib told reporters. Several of Crawford's victims gave impact statements Tuesday saying his action shattered the sense of safety they once felt in their homes and left them with lasting mental problems. Crawford put flame to Scott and Evelyn Henderson's Ellicott City home in 2017 when the couple, their younger daughter, and dog were there. The fire forced them into temporary housing and they took out another mortgage to build their dream house as a way to heal. About 2 weeks before they were moved into the remodeled house, Crawford burned it to the ground. See, he would have to catch these hands. Imagine your home gets burned down and then you have to go into temporary housing and take out another mortgage so you can get another house built. You get your dream house built, and 2 weeks before you move in, he burns that one. That is insane. I would go stir crazy over that. Granted, you can always rebuild, but who wants to go through that process not once but twice? Quinn Henderson was recovering from substantial leg surgeries in high school when Crawford lit the house on fire with her inside. She was able to limp out with her parents but rushed back into the burning home to rescue the family's beloved dog Scooby. Before Crawford single-handedly ruined my life with no remorse, I was innocent, Quinn Henderson, who is now 22, said in court. I thought this world was a beautiful place and that evil people only existed in the movies. Well, I don't know what to tell her. If it took this situation right here to realize that it was evil people in reality and not just in the movies, I don't know what to tell you. But I mean, it's still a messed up situation regardless. She went on to describe her struggle with post-traumatic stress disorder and other psychological disorders that yielded suicidal ideation and forced her to finish high school from home. Her parents and older sister echoed that deep emotional toll and detailed the financial hardship caused by the fires. They also spoke of mementos lost to the flames. Flames are indiscriminate. They take what they want and leave what you don't, Evelyn Henderson testified. And the totems that remind you who you were, who you are, and who you hope to be, these vanish. A Polaroid picture of a tow-headed baby under an Ocean City sun gone. A storybook, Henderson continued. Its order and cadence of one-syllable words, long since memorized, obligatory reading, afterbaths and bad dreams, gone. A bin of mismatched barrettes, gone. Bright bins of candy-colored plastic I once used to pin back precious corn silk soft wisp of baby curls, gone. Bernhardt read aloud segments of the impact statement submitted in writing ahead of the court date that moved him before handing down the sentence. Arson, the judge said, is a personalized crime. He ordered Crawford to pay almost $1.2 million in restitution to insurance companies that cover most but not all of the fire's damage. Saying he was satisfied the state's case supported the jury's verdict. Bernhardt highlighted pieces of evidence he found extremely disturbing. Crawford purchased a vanity license plate that read SureCan, which was the brand of gas canister that investigators found scores of in his garage. Surveillance footage for several of the fires displayed at trial showed a man in a hooded sweatshirt walk up to the target properties carrying cans of gas, pouring the liquid out and then igniting it. After fires, Crawford contacted his victims under the guise of a concerned neighbor or relative. Sometimes he offered to help investigate or use connections from his decades in law enforcement. This needs to contact persons after the houses have been burned. It's a need to revel in their pain, Bernhardt said. It took investigators years to recognize a connection between the blazes spanning much of central Maryland. All were set with gasoline and occurred between 1 and 4:30 a.m. All but one began in a driveway. All of the victims, it turned out, had some type of connection to Crawford, even if some seem insignificant. Police arrested him in March 2021. Cases against Crawford are pending in Montgomery and Prince George's counties. In Frederick County, he entered an Alford plea, maintaining his innocence but acknowledging the state had enough evidence to convict, and got sentenced to 20 years in prison, with all but 18 months suspended. He was credited for already having served that time before trial. labeling him a danger to every single person if released. Howard County Senior Assistant State's Attorney Patricia Cecil should spend the rest of his natural life in prison. And there it goes right there. The reasoning why they gave him that life sentence, because look at this, to put him back out there so he could do and set more fires. Nah, he's a danger to society, and that's the reason why that's why the people should get life sentences, is if they feel that the person who is getting it is a danger to society. And this guy is pretty damn dangerous and a freaking psycho. A pre-sentence investigation set the guidelines for Crawford's punishment at 85 to 130 years. Bonsip asked Bernhardt to ignore the attempted murder convictions and impose a sentence under the guidelines for 3 arson convictions. 12 to 28 years, saying his client's crimes only caused property damage. He also noted Crawford advanced age and touted his career in law enforcement. Like that doesn't matter. This man could have murdered a lot of people with what he did. Property damage, there's a lot of psychological and emotional and financial damage there as well. At least those can be rebuilt. If those people would have died in fires, they're not coming back. This is not a video game where when you die, you can restart. When you die in real life, there is no restart button. It's done. Your life is over. Mr. Crawford has done some good things in his life, Bonsip says, so here comes the resume. The jury has decided he has done some bad things. Some? You call burning all these homes over the span of almost a decade some bad things? Okay. See, he tried to implement the Operation Protect the White Boy on this dude, but it didn't work. And I'm glad it didn't. After penning a 22-page letter to the judge, Crawford accepted an opportunity to speak in court. This has been quite the ordeal for everyone involved, especially for the victims and their families, he said, before addressing comments about faith in God to a couple whose home he burned twice. Bernhardt granted a request from Crawford's attorney to seal the letter he submitted, citing information about children within. But the judge said Crawford described his legacy as one of being devoted to helping others, both at home and in law enforcement. To the extent that was his legacy, it's gone now, Bernhardt said. He's been described as a monster here today, and that's the legacy I believe will follow him. Well, first off, shout out to that judge for passing down that sentence and rightful sentence. And his so-called attorney is a POS, because he literally, while I understand why you're trying to get your client off, not so much off, but get a much lesser sentence, you're also insulting the victims in that courtroom. Like, this guy literally called them a bunch of agony. I think the worst one was the family whose home he burned down twice. Again, that I wouldn't be able to wrap my mind around that. Like, you burn down one home, then we take out a mortgage to get another home, and then you burn that one before we even get a chance to move in. 2 weeks from moving in, and he burned that one down too. All because of his little personal vendettas. This guy is absolutely insane. Him getting that life sentence is exactly what he deserves. Now, I would like to see if he's gonna try to burn some shit down there where he's going. I highly doubt he's gonna get that far. They need to put him in Gen Pop. I don't give a damn how old he is. Put his old decrepit ass there and let him rot. I mean, well, he kind of has no choice at this point because he ain't getting out where he's going. But yeah. This is probably one of the craziest arson stories I've ever heard. But thankfully, nobody died. Like, there were no casualties. The only thing that was lost was their homes, and that's bad enough. Especially that when I was reading that testimony from one of the victims, where they were listing off the things that were gone, that they can't get back. Now, granted, like I said, the best part about it is that they're alive. Stuff can be replaced, but I understand if it's something of sentimental value that you can't go and just simply replace, especially if it comes from, like, maybe it could be something that was passed down the line through generations. Once that's gone, you can't get it back. And that, like a family heirloom or something like that, that hits different. But he didn't care. He didn't care about any of that. He was on his own personal crusade. After all, they called them revenge fires. And these people probably didn't even realize that they were doing anything wrong to this guy, and they probably weren't. But he probably took something so small and made it something into so exaggerated. Like that one where it was an issue between his wife and somebody else, and he decides to go set their house or their car on fire. So yeah, I think this was definitely the right sentencing. But y'all let me know what y'all think.